95.7, yeah. No, I mean, I think it's my last game. I will simply not play against him anymore.
That's former world champion Vladimir Kramnik, and he's not happy, as you can see. We'll have more on that clip towards the end of this video, but first to this leaked footage of the Kramnik scrolls, a long list that he's been compiling of chess players that he suspects of cheating. His mission now in life is to catch them all, right? And this guy, Jose Martinez, aka Jospem, is top of the hit list right now. Now, they played on Tuesday 5th of March 2024, entitled Tuesday, a weekly online blitz tournament on chess.com, the most prestigious. In the morning, Kramnik got smashed in a positional masterpiece. I'll link that one at the end, and guess what? They got paired again in the late edition of Titled Tuesday, and again we had just a positional classic. So Jospem with white here. Check out this game. Do you think the white player is cheating here? You decide. I'm passing no judgment. I'm bringing the moves right now. So c5 played by Vladimir Kramnik, the Sicilian defense. We get knight f3, d6, c3, a c3 Sicilian or Alapin to call it its proper name. Shout out to Ray Lopez. And this is a delayed Alapin because we've had a knight developing. So knight f6 hits the central pawn, h3, and it sets a trap. If the knight captures the pawn on e4, there's queen a4 check, you pick up that pony. So knight c6 develops. We get bishop d3, Jospem repeating this weird looking variation. But after e5, setting up one of our favourite pawn structures, right? We've given this one a name, but we'll leave that unsaid. We can deal with it in the comments. We get bishop c2, preparing to unleash the d-pawn. Now, in the morning game, Kramnik played g6 and fianchettoed the bishop. Here, he goes d5. Looks a bit counterintuitive to move the pawn again, and after captures, bring your queen into the game very early. Look at that for a Black Widow spider. 8 legs sprawled across the board, but because this pawn's on c3, your opponent can't develop and kick. So it's very playable. Common idea. Queen e2. This one in the waiting room at the hospital, preparing to x-ray the king. Don't think that makes sense, but we've got an x-ray on the e-file. So bishop e7 blocks it. Now d3. Preparing to carry on development. Castles played, knight bd2, bishop f5, nice kind of initiative here for Kramnik with black, but knight e4 just plugs the hole here, blocks out the bishop, good outpost for that knight. Kramnik brings a rook to the centre of the board and bishop g5, pressuring hugely on f6, and Kramnik just nudges back the bishop here. Now we do get takes, bishop recaptures, but not knight takes with check, shattering the pawn structure. Why not? Well, then there is huge pressure on d3. This is the problem, very hard to actually hold that one together. So instead, a classic Jospem move, pawn to g4. Kingside expansion, he's very good at these blitz attacks, uncomfortable to face, time's burning. Kramnik plays on the queen side there as counterplay. h4 now comes. This move threatened, and the computer's favourite here is pawn h6. Give some room, we get a different game. But what you shouldn't do is advance this pawn c4. Explosive move, yes, we're going to repeat the dad joke, but there's a problem. Simply takes, we get queen takes, pawn recaptures, and amazingly, this endgame for black is horrendous, because after h5, the bishop's forced to capture here, this one recaptures, hits the knight, and not only is c4 terribly weak, also e5 quite weak from this knight, and it's forcing the bishop to babysit it, but this knight is just struggling for good maneuvers. You know, the top computer one is knight b8 to d7 to c5 to e6 to f4. Takes a light year to get there. Wait, a light year would be fast? No, maybe long? I don't know. I'm a bit tired and I'm bunged up with a cold. I do apologise. But it takes ages to get there. And this pawn in the meantime is very weak. So Kramnik goes rook d6. We get rook d1 in response. These rooks double on the file. Takes, rook recaptures, king e2. And now here Kramnik goes for this knight a5 manoeuvre. Another option was knight d8. But then you run into knight d2 once the rooks come off. The pawn's dropping. So okay, knight a5 played to hold the pawn. The rook comes to d1. They come off the board. Black didn't have anything better, or the white rook gets really active. King f8 now played from Kramnik, ditching the pawn, but what else to do? It's so tough. You can play g6 to keep it defended, but then knight d2 comes and bishop d5. Very uncomfortable. So king f8 selected. Here Jospem snaps off the pawn on h7. Normally the bishop would be trapped, but not with this pawn on h5. So knight b7 played. That was the point. The knight can now escape the net that the bishop had it in. We get this move of g5, kicking back the bishop, and now this pawn drops. Why wasn't this pawn taken on g5? Well, then the pawn on c4 drops. You know, it's all pretty grim. So instead, we get knight d6, holding the c4 pawn, which is then keeping these ones at bay. Now knight f3, holds g5, bishop b6, hits f2, the king covers here. Now we get f6, captures, pawn recaptures, bishop g6 and king g7. And this h-pawn is a monster, completely tying down the black king so that it doesn't run, become a baby girl. Knight d2, pressures this one. King h6, Kramnik shuffling, f4, f5, it's torture. Knight f1 now, just classy manoeuvring. King g7, knight e3, f5 under fire, king f6 covers, and after knight d5 check, king g7 to stay with the h-pawn, just the simplest of finishes, right? Knight takes on b6. There's something so elegant about taking down a former world champion with just the most simple looking of moves that are just beautiful. So king e3 now played. King f6, king d4, and we soon get resignation because the king is marching in. You know, what if you go king d5 to stop the progression of the king? Well, the problem is that passed h-pawn won't keep clicking down the entire line, but because the king gets distracted this way, well then this king marches in here, dislodges the knight, and then c4 falls, f5 falls, too many pawns for white. So after king d4, Kramnik goes b5, king c5, and we get resignation because the knight is attacked. The moment it moves, b5 drops, then c4 as well. It's game over. This was the final position, and these were Kramnik's comments to round off this game.
95.7, yeah. No, I mean, I think it's my last game. I will simply not play against him anymore because it doesn't make sense. Anyways, I'm going to lose. So in my title Tuesday, I will just announce I'm not going to play against him anymore. Just resign immediately. But offline with pleasure, I will play with him. Or online with control, yeah.
So will Kramnik literally resign the next time he plays Jospem? Time will tell. Thank you very much for watching this video, sticking with my voice. I'm going to get some pills in me, good night's sleep, hopefully feel better. But I love checking in on the channel. Do hit subscribe to never miss a recap. And for the first game that these guys played in the day, check out the video on screen. Thanks a lot for watching and see you soon.